My name is Mercia Dukugo Amina. I manage the team at Fiduciary Services Limited, and it's a pleasure to have everyone join us today as we discuss the trends and dynamics that are shaping the lives and legacies of affluent and high net worth individuals. We have a power-packed team of speakers that are going to dissect most of the issues with respect to the trends and dynamics. And we look forward to an engaging conversation with them. We trust that you would also be able to benefit from their wealth of knowledge and experience, and that at the end of the day, we would be able to understand what the issues are around salient issues that affect families, that affect affluent and also affect their wealth as well. I'm going to quickly introduce Christo Meyer. So Christo is a founder and multi-jurisdictional legal advisor with Ushi Advisory, which is based out of South Africa. He is very much into the multi-jurisdictional planning, estate planning space for wealthy families, and he works with respect to offshore structuring, asset protection, as well as issues around digital assets across multiple jurisdictions. So Christo really is focused on guiding clients in Africa, Europe, and America through complexities of international estate planning and asset protection. His strategic experience has contributed to the success of numerous individuals and family. He also serves as a board at Borderless Blockchain Alliance and has been building an inclusive Web3 world using blockchain and cutting-edge technologies. So, ladies and gentlemen, our dear participants and attendees, it's my great pleasure to welcome Christo. So thank you so much, Christo. So we start it off. And the number one question is, in our own opening remarks, in our own, based on our knowledge, based on the experiences we've had with families, this is the 8th month of the year. So we've had 2023 run up for 7 months, and we are now in the 8th, almost getting to the middle of the month as well. So what has been the trends and the dynamics in our own practice that we see that is shaping the lives and the legacies of affluent and high net worth individuals? Christo, please kind of just let us know what's going on within the assets preservation space for affluent and high net worth with respect to that digital assets. What's going on? I'm not certain that digital assets are featuring as much as they were either during the pandemic or shortly after. There seems to be a lag. Are families still having significant assets being held in digital asset in digital based portfolios, or have they moved on to other things? And yeah, so let's just understand what the trends and dynamics are.
Perfect, thank you, Mercy. Yeah, it is interesting. The world will change, but that's the whole thing with digital assets. Everything is different every day, and every day there's a new product or new protocol that's being launched in terms of that. Also, with the venture capitalists and the family offices investing in new tech or fintech startups, a lot of them have lost a lot of money due to the fact that they didn't exactly know how to do it. As Teresa said, the generation disease that we're working with are totally a different animal, if I can call it that, because they're not human beings the way we are human beings. There's no time periods in terms of working times or not working times. It's almost if they work 24/7. If they've got a phone in their hands, they can work. So the landscape of digital assets is the interesting one in terms of, number one, understanding what you've got, because now I've got a family business with a youngster of about 24 having made money in digital assets, and the rest of the family has got absolutely no clue. All the advisors advising the family do not understand digital assets. So there's a big disparity between the guys that knows and the guys that do not know in terms of that. And that also creates a huge problem in terms of estate planning, asset protection planning, And then just basically family succession. Just if I touch on Martha in terms of speaking about taboos, in Africa, it was a taboo prior to the pandemic to talk about dying anyway. Where now post-pandemic, they are opening up a little bit more about saying, listen, we need to discuss the succession planning. We're still not allowed in certain jurisdictions to call it estate planning, but succession planning is a little bit more acceptable at the moment. And then in terms of mental incapacity, the personality changes due to COVID strokes in general is also a huge problem, which I've seen in the African continent. Now, throwing digital assets or virtual assets into it is where we sit with a traditional sense of touchy-feely people and bring them to something where the sun made money basically out of nothing. People do not understand the metaverse. They do not understand virtual reality. They do not understand NTS and all the rest of it. And now we need to basically get that into idea in terms of succession, that if the holder of that digital asset passes away, what's going to happen to that asset? Because most of the time, the next generation, either do not understand it, or if we jump into a generation and going to parents, they've got no idea what to do with it. So we sit with a huge problem between the beneficiaries receiving digital assets. The advisors do not understand how to deal with these assets. And then I'm not even talking about the trustees and executives and probate and all the other stuff that's complicating the whole matter.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Christo. That's so true. I know that there's a lot of education that goes in with respect to digital assets. And very critical is that you would find a situation where it is the rising gen most times that are kind of the ones that are a lot more aggressive in embracing these portfolios and all that. So there is really that knowledge gap, and I think a significant knowledge gap as well that we have within the industry is also the fact that we leave a lot of digital footprints, our emails, social media accounts, and a whole lot of other things. And so the traditional advisors are really having a hard time, just as you pointed out, in trying to dissect. So how do we bring this into the estate planning matrix for our clients? What do we do? And you know that when we are speaking about most of the digital platforms that we use, we are not the owners. We would have signed up the terms and conditions and given out all the powers to the platform operators themselves. So having to take back, if you don't have a legacy program or a legacy structure process in those platforms, you find out that whatever you have that the family would want to lay hands on, probably you might have to go to courts, and that's even if you are successful. But that's also a lot of the things that we would be delving into today, to kind of just understand how clients can best position themselves to kind of appreciate the work, the estate planning that has to go into the digital, with their digital footprints, as well as what are the measures that we can all take. So thank you so much for that. So we'll continue with the conversation. And so, Christo, to speak to digital assets, what are the considerations that should be had in mind to ensure that there's a smooth transfer of digital assets to beneficiaries?
Well, the difficulty with digital assets is the fact that majority of those digital assets are decentralized assets, which means that there is not a place where I can go to like a bank and ask for bank accounts and track and trace the documentation or the asset itself. There's also various types of digital assets. So it could be anything from a NFT, which is a little picture, right through to a utility token. It could be a governance token that runs a family business or a family governance system. It could be a DeFi product, which is a lending or a decentralized financial product. So there's a whole lot of different ideas of a digital asset that we need to look at. And each one of those got different permutations in terms of how do we plan and how do we structure for that. And then we're not even talking about the influences of the world at the moment in terms of YouTube channels and Twitter channels and Twitch and all the other stuff that comes into play. So the digital estate planning that comes into play at the moment is a total different estate plan. And as I say to most of my, let's call it crypto-based, digital-based clients, is we almost move back to a written document estate plan on a paper-based document, because most of these guys do not trust the internet at all. So they don't want to have their documentation on any Google Drive or OneDrive or anything like that. So the problem comes in with digital assets is the fact that we can't trace it. Most of the time, the client itself with a recovered seed or private key. Now that key could be 12 to 36 words. That could be anything from sail to boat to sea to earth, that will recover your specific wallet in which that digital asset is there. If that seed or recovery seed or private key is lost, your asset is lost. Now, currently, it is estimated that there's already 4 million Bitcoins that's been lost due to the fact that these keys have been misplaced and its wallet is basically just missing. Now, in today's terms, that's $120 billion worth of lost assets. Now, in the flip side of that, it is also estimated that about 20,000 wallets are compromised every single day. Now, that compromise could either be by hacking or by putting it to someone else or sharing the key or your stuff which you shouldn't have shared. So all of that comes into play in terms of asset protection as well as international digital estate planning. Now, in digital estate planning, you also should start looking at your executor that you appoint, your administrator to the estate, the trustees to the estate. Do they understand what to do with these seeds, recovery seeds? Do they understand where to go and look for this asset? Majority of the clients we deal with do not have one wallet. They have multiple wallets, and that's purely just you from a risk point of view as well as you don't put all your eggs in one basket, especially with the cyber attacks and all the hacking that we are seeing at the moment. The latest one was, I think it was in Estonia, where a recruiter phoned one of the employees and said, listen here, we've got a new job offer. Please show me what you can do. And they downloaded a file, which was a virus, onto this employee's computer for them to show that they can code. And with that, they stole, I think it was $37 million worth of crypto assets. So the way or the extent that criminals will go into finding virtual assets is a big problem. And now the reason for that, again, decentralized. Now, people do not understand the fact that decentralized does not mean that it's there's anonymity in terms of it. Yes, there's privacy and all the rest of it, but that's part and parcel of the planning. So to get assets to the beneficiary, number one, understand the advisors that's at play, understand the executive that's at play, understand the trustees that's at play, and then understand what is that beneficiary going to do with it. Because remember, the digital asset could be a wild range of things. There could also be a situation where that specific digital asset was staked, which is basically given to a exchange for a annual yield, and it could be fixed in terms of a period of time. There could also be a smart contract in terms of lending, in terms of DeFi products, where there was a loan granted against that crypto asset that you need to look at. So it's a very complex scenario that you need to ask the right questions, and not assume that people know what is supposed to happen at the date of death or mental capacity. Mental capacity for me on a digital asset is a much bigger risk than anything else, because if they didn't write down that private key or that recovery seed, which most of the guys don't do originally, we've got a problem, because then we sit with lost assets again. And the risk of losing assets is far greater than going from a digital asset to a zero-based digital asset currently, purely due to the human factor.
Yeah, thank you. That's so these are really the salient issues that have come to stay. I mean, we live in a digital world, it's evolving every day. We are getting more footprints, and all that is not going to go away. Yeah, so we just have to make sure that these are the salient issues that we continuously speak about, whether it's having the calls with the clients, whether it's webinars like this, whether it's conferences, and just kind of getting that education out there. So thank you so much, Christo, for that.
Thanks, Mercy. Yeah, just to conclude our session in terms of digital assets, people need to understand that and don't need to try to do this on their own. It's a very complex field and a very, very, very dangerous field to go in. Which makes it more dangerous is that most jurisdictions also treat digital assets differently. So we can have one country that treats it as a property, another country that treats it as a financial asset, and someone like the UK, which depends on how you deal with that asset, depends on the classification of it. That creates a huge problem. The other problem that we've got is that a lot of the countries are still not regulated in terms of digital assets. So you might be dealing with a firm that's not regulated in any financial service regulations, and that puts your money at risk as well. Then we also need to look at the planning in terms of it, protection in terms of it, and discussing with your family what's going to happen with your digital assets should something happens to you, that you've got a digital plan alongside your physical estate plan, and then intertwine that into a global or a multi-generational, multi-jurisdictional, multi-asset plan at the end of the day, that there's a structured plan to be followed in terms of how to deal with it. Be careful of scams due to the fact that it is a very up and coming industry, especially in the African continent. We see a lot of scams in terms of that. Don't listen to your friends in the tavern. That doesn't work. Listening to friends at a cocktail party normally creates more problems than anything else. And speak to the right advisor at the end of the day that has dealt with this and has seen with it. And as I say, every day it's a new day. There's a new product. There's a new protocol. There's new currency. There is something new. There's a new NFT that was minted. So you need to speak to people that's up to date in terms of what's happening in terms of the digital world. Thank you for your time.
Fantastic, Christo. Fantastic. Yeah, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this panel. I know that we haven't really gone nitty-gritty into the issues. There's a lot more conversations that need to go on. There's a lot more learning. There's a lot more understanding that needs to go on. But at least today we have done something to push the needle further. So I'm really happy to have had the conversation with us. And yeah, so thank you so much for your time. And we do hope that when we call on you next time, you would be glad to come join us and really share with us your expertise and your knowledge that has been at play from the conversation up until now. So thank you so much. And for everyone that is also with us, it's also critical that we work with the right advisors. You cannot overemphasize it. There's a need to work with the right advisors. When you work with the right advisors, the right firms, the issues that you should be aware of, those things that you should take cognizance of, they would naturally be part of what would be addressed by the advisors. Thank you so much, everyone. It's been a delight to have this session. It's been a delight to speak through the trends and dynamics that are shaping the lives and legacies of affluent and high net worth individuals. Over the course of the webinar, we've x-rayed the issues of family dynamics. We've come to understand what they are and how we could work around with the right advisors to be able to ensure that the issues that would arise, whether with the mental incapacity, diminished capacity, or declining capacity of anyone in the family can be appropriately taken care of, as well as how we can preserve our digital assets. We've also discussed that as well. And we looked extensively into philanthropy and x-rayed how next gens, rising generations are connecting with philanthropy, African philanthropy, what are the things that drive us, as well as from an Islamic perspective as well, sustainability and philanthropy, and how we can better connect with our community, knowing fully well that we have to start with purpose. We have to articulate our purpose as a family. We have to understand what our wealth is to be used for, and we have to make sure that at the end of the day, the legacies that we are leaving, they are sustainable, and they are the ones that the rising gen will be happy to take into the future, and ensure that at the end of the day, we have multi-generational, thriving, and harmonious families. So it's been a pleasure having everyone here. We look forward to the next edition of our webinars, and on a final note, we say thank you to everyone. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking with everyone. So till next time, thank you everyone, and bye bye for now.